Hello there, welcome to my appreciation of Steve McQueen, Le Mans and the Porsche 917 and its great victory, the first one for Porsche in the 1970 Le Mans race, which of course Steve McQueen made into a movie. I'm going to start talking about McQueen if I may, but before we get into McQueen and Le Mans and the movie and the other things, just talk about Le Mans and general motor racing movies. For my money, there are really 3, possibly 4 great motor racing films. The outside, when I said maybe 4, is Grand Prix with James Garner, which is actually very well made, very well photographed, technically very cleverly done, but just a bit, for my money, a bit too Hollywood and a bit too predictable. The story, it's got the love story and it's all just a typical Hollywood movie, and we'll come back to that theme of the Hollywood style of film when we get talking about Steve McQueen's Le Mans. But the other 2 films that are really, really good that you should consider as well as Le Mans, I'd say probably I don't know, I can't say which would be second, which would be third, but recently I've just seen the latest one, which is Le Mans 66, also known as Ford versus Ferrari, and this of course is about the Ford GT40 project, where Ken Miles, the race driver, Brummy from Birmingham, teams up with Carroll Shelby, the legendary American racer himself, and mainly known for his auto engineering and his AC Cobra cars and Shelby Cobras and all that stuff. But I heard this movie was being made and I was not very enthusiastic about it, and I thought it was going to be absolutely terrible. And do you know what? I couldn't have been more wrong. It's absolutely brilliant. This film, can't recommend it highly enough. It's basically 99% accurate. It's got sort of Apollo 13 style accuracy. It's really good. Tells a great story. Perhaps got a bit of a sad ending in a way, but it's accurate. It's very well, cleverly made as a film, and I strongly recommend you see that. I think you really enjoy it, and the 2 stars in it actually give great performances, so I'll move off from that, but that's a strongly recommended film for you. And the other one of course is Rush. We've got the fancy holographic version of the cover here. I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera. It's Niki Lauda, no it's James Hunt, no it's Niki Lauda again. But this of course tells Niki Lauda James Hunt's rivalry story, especially their 1976 championship season, where Hunt wins the title from Lauda, and it's a remarkable film in the way it portrays the 2 characters so well. Really, really good. 2 characters that a lot of us know quite well or knew quite well. Sadly now both passed, of course, but Daniel Bruhl in particular, I think, who plays Niki Lauda, is absolutely perfect. Lauda said that it gave him goosebumps when he saw this film. But anyway, I won't dwell on this. Highly recommended film. Technically very clever, cheats in a few areas using CGI, and if you're a real motor racing expert you might spot that the circuits they're talking about, they're racing at, are not the circuits they say they are. You'll know where they are. But for everybody else, it's a great story. It's, again, a true story, and sort of 99% true, well worth watching. And again, this one is directed by Ron Howard, who made Apollo 13, which explains why it's so good. And again, he's got this thing about trying to be accurate, so that's recommended. Anyway, enough of that. We're not here to talk about these other things. We're here to talk about Steve McQueen. Now, Steve McQueen was a movie star of the 1960s and 70s. In particular, he had quite a tough upbringing. He was abandoned by his father. I don't think he knew his father, and he was brought up by step uncle, and had a very tough upbringing. Ended up at like a naughty boys school, Boys Republic it's called, and there are some really good documentaries about his life and his movies, and I'm going to give links to some of these that you can watch later. I strongly recommend you do, because the ones I put links to I thought were very impressive, and includes a lot of supplementary information and testimony from his son Chad. He's had a bit of a tough life himself. He's a movie actor, but had a horrible car crash, motor racing accident, and his spine and his neck and his eye were all badly, his lung and all sorts. The guy's screwed together with nuts and bolts, but he's still got his dad's sort of free spirit and great attitude, and loves motor racing. So he contributes in a lot of these things we're going to talk about, including the books I'm going to show you. There is a masterpiece documentary which I really strongly recommend you watch, and that is this one. Steve McQueen, The Man and Le Mans. And this really is about McQueen, his personality, his relationships, and most of all about how this film was made and how it kind of, I wouldn't say derailed his career, because he went on to make great films afterwards. He made The Towering Inferno and one or two other things that Papillon he did as well afterwards, which were both great films. But he sort of lost his love for motor racing, and he was a great driver. He wasn't just an actor, he could actually drive. He had great skill behind the wheel of a car. So when you see him, you know, it's not really like James Garner, no offence to him, who was a great movie actor. But McQueen really lived it, and he took part 3 months before the Le Mans 24-hour race, which he wanted to take part in 1917, applied to partner with Jackie Stewart in a Porsche 917. And the insurance company that underwrote the studios refused to let him take part in the event, so he had to sit it out. And he was not happy about this, he was very upset. But 3 months earlier he took part in the Sebring in Florida, the 12-hour race, which took place there, and he came second, partnering with the Peter Revson, American driver, good driver. And the pair of them came second to Mario Andretti, and Andretti only won because he had to change his car, because his first car broke, which wouldn't be allowed today, of course. That would have been the end of the race. But he was allowed to change to another Ferrari, and he actually beat him only by about 30-40 seconds, I think it was. So it's quite a close finish, and this cemented McQueen's reputation in the world as a serious racing driver, and someone who lived, you know, I think really wanted to be a racing driver. I'm amazed that really he didn't just quit acting, because I think he got to the point where he wanted to become maybe a director, and we'll talk about this as we go through the books and things. But it's a shame he didn't become a racing driver. But as is documented in this movie, documentary I should say, it all goes wrong. His career kind of goes horribly wrong at this point, because he has maybe too much passion for the driving and not enough for the movie element of this, and it almost becomes, he spends a lot of time with all the great drivers of the time, like Derek Bell and Jackie Hicks, and who else did we have, Vic Elford and Jean-Pierre Jabouille, David Piper, Dickie Atwood, who actually won the Le Mans 24 hours. We'll come back to that in a minute. All these guys that they were spending time with, and they'd hired them to drive in the movie. And basically, he just wanted to be with these guys, and he shared the experience. He loved being amongst racing drivers. He loved the experience and the danger and all that stuff. And he didn't have much of a sense of fear. He was very brave beyond the sensible. I mean, he was as brave as a lot of racing drivers are, you know. He didn't have any sense of limit. Whereas an actor would be like, well, this is getting a bit heavy. But no, he really had this no fear at all. Anyway, this is all documented. Rather than me ramble on, I really recommend you get this film. It's a little bit slow, it's a documentary, it's very slow, the pace, but it kind of you can feel the pressure that was going on ratcheting up as it gets through the production of this film, and things start to go wrong in this movie as they make it, which we'll come to in a minute. But that is a movie you should not miss. If you love Steve McQueen, if you love Le Mans, and you haven't seen this, you've got to get it. It's absolutely brilliant. Available from all good supply. Right, now then, let's just talk about McQueen the man and McQueen the movie star, and talk about sort of his successes and things. I mean, basically, he shot to fame in, I think it was 62, 63, with The Magnificent Seven, which was a film directed by John Sturges, who was a really great director, and he had great successes with a number of films. And then McQueen appeared again in The Great Escape, of course. And The Great Escape was a hugely internationally successful film. Now, there is one thing that was interesting about The Great Escape, which has parallels with the Le Mans movie. First of all, they got Sturges to direct Le Mans. But one thing that was unusual about The Great Escape is apparently they didn't really have a script. They had a basic idea of what the film was going to be about and how they were going to go about it, but there was no proper script. And so there was a lot of shooting and reshooting, giving options for doing things and going back and forth and changing their mind. And this is a theme that repeats later, which we'll come to. But that was a very successful film, and of course by this time Steve McQueen was becoming a mega star. And then he went on from that, he made The Sand Pebbles, which is the one that he got an Academy Award for that, and this made him international star and catapulted him to big roles. So then what did we have? We had Bullet, I think that was 1967-68. Now Bullet, of course, was very interesting film. That was actually a little bit different than the normal cop movies. In fact, it almost set a trend, because if you think about Bullet, Dirty Harry is quite a similar style of detective. Doesn't say a lot. He's very, very tough and uncompromising, and he's got not much respect for his seniors in the police force. And Bullet's the same, okay? But Steve McQueen sort of set the trend. He made that mould, if you like, of that sort of character, and this made him a mega star, especially when they had this massive car chase. We'll see some images of this shortly. Absolutely astonishing film. Not like the kind of cop, detective movies that you'd seen before. Very dark noir sort of style to it. Not a huge amount of dialogue in the film. Even when in the relationships between him and his girlfriend, or him and his bosses, they don't talk that much. There's a lot of body language and mood music going on. It's very, very visual film. Very, very impressive looking film, I have to say. And then he went on and he made the Thomas Crown Affair. Now that was directed by Norman Jewison, who had previously directed Steve McQueen in The Cincinnati Kid. Not a film I've seen actually, if I'm honest, that one, but quite highly rated. But Thomas Crown, he didn't want McQueen to be the lead in that film, because he considered him to be wrong for it, too tough, too fighty, too much of an action hero, and he wanted someone who was going to be very urbane and sophisticated, a man who's very well educated and has got real charisma and class. And McQueen basically went to him and said, "Hey, I can do this, and he persuaded Norman Jewison, who he got on very well with, obviously. He let him take the lead role, and of course he does it with such aplomb. It's quite remarkable. I think that everybody was surprised, including him, just how well he carried it off. And in that film, of course, there's lots of, again, there's not a lot of talking going on, a lot of subtle body language and sexual chemistry with himself and Faye Dunaway, and the glider sequences and all this stuff. Very, very interesting, and a very unusual way of photographing some of the sequences with this split screen. Not really my cup of tea, but it does add to the sort of great way of showing lots of events happening at the same time. Now, on the subject of the Thomas Crown Affair, I actually, one thing I do have here, a bit of memorabilia, if you like. We've got the Steve McQueen Persol sunglasses, and these are the genuine limited edition, which are not cheap. Okay, I won't go into how much they were, but this is expensive stuff. But Persol are great manufacturers, Italian. They're in Turin. Now they're owned by Luxottica these days. Luxottica make most of the sunglasses that you see on sale, actually. Big worldwide concern. They've got a big factory in Milan. Most of these brands that you think you're buying, are buying Hugo Boss or whatever it is. No, they're actually made by a company called Luxottica. Now, these are not, they're owned by them, but they still make these in their original factory outside Turin, which is not that big. So these are handmade, and they've got this beautiful tiny little case. And here they are. And these are these folding ones. Now these are the ones he wore in the glider sequence, and then also the sequence in Thomas Crown Affair where he's at the cemetery. I'm going to put them on. Here we go. You ready for this? Do I look like Tommy Crown? No? I think I look more like Richard Atwood. You'll see what I mean later. He's Anyway, so what the beauty of these is that they have these beautiful folding arms. They fold in like so, and then they fold again, and then finally they fold right up, and they end up in this tiny little package, which ends up going in the little case as we mentioned, and pop in there. Not always that easily. There you go. So McQueen loved these and he actually wore them in real life as well. So in the movie, there's lots of pictures of him wearing them, and he had several pairs apparently with different coloured lenses. But he loved them because he could pop them in his t-shirt pocket, and he wasn't needing them, and they didn't get in the way. And they've got beautiful leathers in them as well. They are a thing of beauty, especially when you see. Just turn that again. When you see this, the finish that they have with these beautiful chromed stainless steel. Don't know if you can see that on the camera. Got the chromed stainless steel arms and the little arrows, which is a Purcell trademark, and they are a thing of beauty. No, I don't think I look like the king of cool. You can try though, can't you? Anyway, put those down. But you'll see a photo of it here. In fact, I'll show you a couple of photos. I'll put the proper glasses on now. Go back to geeky glasses. Yeah, there's several images we're going to see, but yeah, it's not the most high resolution. But there he is wearing the said glasses. Thomas Crown. And there was a shot I had of him in the glider where he's wearing them, but I think we've lost that one. Not to worry. Anyway, as I mentioned, going back to the story, so McQueen desperately wants to make this motor racing picture, and he wants to have control and directorial control. He doesn't want to actually direct the movie, he wants to star in it. So they hire John Sturgis, his friend who helped him shoot to fame with the Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape. But again, they don't have a script, and they have a lot of problems. This is the sort of genesis of the problems that spin out of control with this film. Now, I mentioned the documentary tells you all about this in fantastic detail, and more detail than I'll go into here, but they created a complete sort of new technical standard in photography as well for the movie. So they used this car that McQueen had come second at the Sebring racing in America, and they converted it to fit a camera forward facing and two rear facing cameras with these aerodynamic hoods over them, so they could actually enter this car in the race as a genuine entrant in 1970. Now, speaking of the event, it was today. It was the 13th of June and the 14th of June 1970, Saturday and Sunday, same as today's date. So they really wanted to use this event because they wouldn't let McQueen drive in it. So they put another driver in, hired another guy, and he drove the camera car, and he still did about, out of I think 364 laps was the total race distance, and he still did about 265. So he did about 2/3 race distance. And this is all the images you see in the movie, through the rain and on the straight, and it's all real. None of this is like the other movies I mentioned earlier. It's not CGI. This is genuine footage taken at ridiculously high speed, 200 mile an hour plus. And they even have this gimbal system where they could have this camera that rotated around the back of the car. You'll see shots in the movie where you look at the back of the car, and then suddenly it rotates and looks at the side, and then rotates around the front. Absolutely amazing. I mean, this is unheard of technology. So they set all this up, and to accommodate the sheer scale of this production, they hired a bit of land within the Le Mans circuit, not far from the start line, but inland, sort of between the start line and the Mulsanne Straight, and they called it Solar Village. Now, Solar was the production company that Steve McQueen had set up because he wanted to have, some production control over the whole process. And they made other movies as well. They were the producer, and they went to the studio, Cinema Centre Films, which is actually now part of CBS in the United States. So you won't hear Cinema Centre's name anymore, but you see it at the start of the Le Mans movie and others. And basically Solar Village was set up, and it was like they were like holiday chalets almost, like in a C shape, big car park in the middle, and they had plenty of parking areas for the vehicles on the outside, and they had an area for the race cars somewhere further out of the village, out of Le Mans itself, down the road, and they would bring them every day through the town. This sort of procession of race cars, and they were all covered in filth because they had to go back to shoot, and keep them dirty, so they couldn't clean them. and it was quite a sight. And you'll see as we go through some of these books and things, and there are images that are remarkable, and you get a bit of insight as to how it was done. Anyway, to try and truncate the story, they start shooting obviously on the 13th or 14th of June on the actual day of the Le Mans, and then they stay. All the public go home after the event. The event, of course, in reality is won not by the Gulf Porsches. Two of those crashed and the other one broke down, unfortunately. It was won by an English gentleman. I hope you can see this. This is the Porsche 917, but not the Gulf. This is the official Porsche works entry. And this is Mr. Richard Atwood and Hans Herman. Hans Herman is on the left, Richard Atwood on the right. See what I mean about me looking a bit more like Dickie Atwood, can't you? And there they are, at speed in their 917, which won the race. And interestingly, second place was Gerard Larousse, who went on to work for the Lotus and Renault teams in Formula One. And third place was, crossing the line, was Dr. Helmut Marko. In a Porsche, one of the older Porsches, I've got the model number 908 I think, a long-tail one, and he of course is now one of the chiefs in the Formula 1 Red Bull team, but he was quite a good driver, so these people obviously do have the right experience. Anyway, digressing, so that's what actually happened. Dickie Atwood won the race. The 917 itself, we'll come to that in a minute, had quite a difficult time. It was the second year it had actually run at Le Mans. First year didn't go well, they had a lot of aerodynamic problems, and I will leave you a link, a very interesting chat from, I think it's the Grand Tour that did an article with James May, and he talks about the history and the 917. The first year they entered it, 69, the car was really unstable, and they could not get the thing on the straight to stop lifting, and it was lifting at the back. They noticed, they did a lot of testing, and they noticed that the front of the car was splattered with flies, but there were none at the rear, on the rear spoiler sections. So obviously the aerodynamics weren't quite right, it wasn't generating any downforce. No air was passing, it was going well above. So they made some adjustments and put like these little gurney flap spoilers on the top, and a central spoiler on the short tail version, as you see on the Gulf Porsches. Bingo, they sorted it, and then it became really competitive. And I say in 1969, on the end of the first lap at Le Mans, a guy was killed. Actually had a crash in 917, so that wasn't a very good start, but rapidly things got better, and it'd already been very competitive in 1970. Then they won Le Mans, so all good. Anyway, back to Steve McQueen and his movie. So McQueen really wanted to make a film that wasn't just this Hollywood movie like the James Garner Grand Prix type of thing. He wanted it really just to be about motor racing. He didn't want it to be about romance. He didn't want it to be about dramatic characters and conflicts between team managers or politics, any of that. He just wanted it to be about 24 hours at Le Mans. And because of that, he really did perhaps get a little bit too close to the drivers, and he put perhaps too much emphasis on the actual racing, and they shot 250,000 feet of film, just racing, not acting, just the racing on track. 250,000 feet of film from this car that ran in the actual race. Then they had to shoot, I think it was another 750,000 of actual footage of all the other stuff, the bit at the start. You see the intro where McQueen's driving through the French countryside in his 911 Porsche and all this kind of thing. But because they didn't have a script, they kept reshooting it, and they couldn't decide how to put it together and what the story was. What was there a story? And this is the problem. He didn't want that. He just wanted to show the 24 hours at Le Mans and the trials and tribulations and the risks and the dangers, and what a motor race can be like at that level. And he did that, of course. He was extremely successful in the end. Very different to other films, as we've discussed, in style. And because of that, the film wasn't really terribly successful in the box office. People thought it was a bit boring and it didn't have much of a story, and women thought it was terrible, not interesting. But if you're really passionate about motor racing, actually, he kind of succeeded, didn't he? Because it didn't go so well, and things got so bad that they were expecting to film the movie between middle of June, the actual race, and the end of August. No, it went on and on, and by the end of July they actually suspended filming, And John Sturges just became more and more frustrated because McQueen was saying, no, he was kind of quasi-directing and taking over the directing. Sturges didn't like this, and he just decided he'd had enough. And he actually quit. He quit late July, I think it was. All this is in the documentary, by the way, but and we'll see the photos of you can see some of the body language, it's not going that well. But they were in real trouble because then they didn't have a movie, they didn't have a director, they didn't have a script. Things fall to pieces, really. So there was a bit of a breakdown in relationship between Steve McQueen and Bob Reliar, who was the Solar director of Solar. And they were both directors, of course, together, and they fell out. And then a guy called Bob Rosen, he actually rang the studio, and they just basically said, that's it, we're taking over. And they sent in another guy to direct the film, a guy called Lee H. Katzin. A guy with a hat, used to walk around with a big pipe, and they kind of railroaded over Steve McQueen, and basically he got relegated to the role of actor only, and it's very unfortunate, and I think that he felt that he'd been betrayed, and there's a lot of bad feeling about this, and he wouldn't talk to Relia. They didn't get on very well at all, but after about a month, actually, he sort of changed, and I think he so wanted to get the film done, didn't want it to be scrapped, that he actually ended up cooperating with Lee Katzin quite well, and they got the thing finished. But they didn't finish until middle of November. It was so serious, they were still doing reshoots at the beginning of November. The trees were supposed to be June, the trees with green leaves, and the leaves are falling, and they were brown leaves, so they had to paint them, they had to spray paint the leaves so that it still looked like it was June. If you look very carefully at this film, you can see in the trees in the background, I think they look a bit brown. Anyway, digressing. But yeah, it was a very, very troubled production, really, because they had no script. I think they got a script at the start, decided how they're going to do it. But I think if Steve had presented that idea, how the film ended up, if he'd presented that at the beginning, they'd have said no, they'd probably never agreed to it. And yet, a lot of things happened that went wrong in them making this film. There was a couple of really bad accidents. David Piper, who was a Le Mans driver, they think he had a puncture toward the end of the lap, and he ended up in a field with the car ripped apart. Thankfully no explosion or fire, but a really serious crash, and he was strapped in his seat, still attached to the engine. The rest of the car was across the way in the grass field. And he had terrible injuries, and he actually lost his right leg. They had to amputate it below the knee, so that was very, very serious indeed. And that's been a legacy. And there's an appreciation at the end of the film saying thanking him for his sacrifice. And I think they actually gave him another 917, because it was his own car that he was driving. He was kind of renting it to them. So he's ended up with another 917, nice one as well. Not much consolation for losing your leg, but he was a great guy. And again, it's all detailed in this documentary. So yeah, it really did show you. And McQueen was very upset about this, but he never went to see him in hospital. They think he couldn't handle it. He didn't want to see the reality of it. But he was lobbying the studio, saying this guy, put his life on the line for us to make this film, as they all did, and we should make sure that he's financially secure, and they should send the proceeds of the premiere to him and his family, which they never did. And McQueen wrote 2 or 3 letters pleading with the studio, which he'd lost control of, to do this, and it didn't happen. But Piper didn't know this until recently. It's all detailed in the movie. Anyway, in the documentary, that is, Le Mans and Le Mans. At the end of it, McQueen didn't even go to the premiere. He left a bit of a bitter taste, and it didn't go right for him, obviously. And he never actually raced again. That's the sad thing. And he was really good at it. He should have actually quit and become a racing driver. This is what he should have done, I think. I think he'd have been a lot happier. But of course, anyway, he went on to make other successful films. He made Papillon, as I say. That was a great film about the prison in French Guiana, the guy that escaped, and Towering Inferno with Paul Newman, who he always had a bit of a rivalry with. But it's a great movie. He didn't destroy his career, but he just lost his enthusiasm, certainly for driving, and he was never as confident. And he also got divorced from his wife. There was a lot of I won't go to the details, I'll let the film tell you, but there was a lot of behind the scenes romantic intrigue. I think we'll leave it at that. Quite interesting. Steve McQueen was known for this. But anyway, part of his appeal, he was known as the king of cool, and he was this cool guy, quite remarkable. Anyway, obviously the essential movie you have to get is the actual film itself, Le Mans. The thing about this film that makes it so unique, and probably the best motor racing pick of all time, is the authenticity. They're real drivers who are driving, not stunt drivers, they're real drivers driving the cars. Many of the drivers who competed against each other in the race, you get to see part of the race, the actual race, and then some of the other footage is still these same drivers in these same cars. They did cheat with some of the crash scenes, which were very well done, especially the McQueen crash, which was one take. They got it in one take. Absolutely incredible. But the only thing that went wrong was that as it came to a halt against the guardrail, the engine wouldn't switch off, and it actually wore down the rear tyres in a few seconds. It burst the tyres and melted the tarmac. But it wasn't actually a Porsche, it was what they call, they had a load of Lolas, and they did for both the Ferraris and the Porsches. And none of the Ferraris, apart from odd scenes where they're being wheeled around the paddock, they're the real thing. But a lot of the on-track scenes, it's a Lola dressed like a Ferrari, a fake, they called it, what did they call it? A Lofari, I think they called it. I think they had these nicknames, Lofari for the Lola Ferrari and the Porsche-ola. Now the Porsche-ola was the one that was crashed, it was McQueen's crash, and they say if you look very carefully you can see some of the original paint from the Lola, I think red underneath, and the body panels come off. But it was very clever the way they did all this, but it wasn't like CGI, it wasn't cheating, everything was done as you see it, and these guys were taking massive risks. They were driving in the rain at 220 miles an hour on the Mulsanne Straight. Amazing, I mean brave, crazy. But you can see it, it's authentic. That's why this is probably the greatest motor racing pick of all time, in my opinion. A lot of people agree with me. Anyway, that's the movie. I'm going to talk about the other things now. So, I've got here in the background something that may be of interest, which is, we won't have it on because we don't want to upset anybody with copyright, but we just have a little bit of the classic scenes from the film playing as we talk. I think that'll be quite good fun. I can just get this to balance properly. There we go. Can I though? Can I? No, we've got a light in the way. How's that then? Yes? No? There we go. Yeah, you can hear the heartbeat. This is the famous iconic scene of the heartbeat, and they're getting ready, and it's got today's date on it, of course, and they're getting ready for the flag to drop. Superb film, iconic, isn't it? The other things that I wanted to show you, well, of course, I wasn't hoping today to reveal my complete. Oh, by the way, yes, you know my nose. I've got the shirt on. Yeah. Where are we? There we go. Racing is life. Anything that happens before or after is just waiting. And it's got the Porsche number 20 917 at the bottom. You see that? There we go. Yeah. I thought it was the right day to wear that. So now we're going to talk about some of the books and the other things that are very strongly recommended if you're interested in this subject, want to know more about McQueen and this astonishing film. We're going to turn him down a little bit, it's going to get very loud in a second. I'm going to start with this one, which is a brilliant book, A French Kiss with Death. Now this is one of the most detailed accounts of the making of this film. How thick it is, it's absolutely like an encyclopedia. And I just wait for them, they're just about to have I think we're just about to have the start of the race here, yeah? Yep, dropping the flag, we're off. We'll just put the sound down. Now then, French Kiss with Death. Now, I'm going to zoom in a bit for this because I'd like you to see a really good... Yeah, now we've got the race in the background there. There we go. Right. Now then. Let's have a look at this. All about the making of Le Mans. It's quite astonishing. It tells you things like... Here, for example, we've got this technical detail about the 917 Longtail. It had these little elevons on the back trying to cure this problem I talked about with the lack of downforce at the rear. So they had these suspension activated elevons so that when it leaned over to the left on a right hand bend, the right hand elevon would come up to try and give downforce to stop it heeling over. try and even it out and reduce the loading. And there's actually photos here, probably hard to see in fairness, but take my word for it here, that it's going through, sure enough, it's going through a right-hander, leaning to the left, but the right elevon is up to give extra downforce, like a wing on an aircraft, to try and reduce the forces on the left side of the car, and vice versa. And there's a shot here, which I'll try and zoom you in for. You might be able to see it. And here, if you look very carefully, you can see that the elevon there is clearly going through a left-hand bend, and the elevon on the left is up to try and reduce the forces on the right. So it's quite a clever system, actually. Anyhow, we'll come out a little bit. We've now got the cars on the Mulsanne straight here, by the way. I'll just figure that for you. Here we go. In the background, there they go, whistling down the Mulsanne at massive speeds. Look at that, absolutely incredible. Anyway, this is all for real, don't forget. This is actually, a lot of this footage was taken during the event, so it's not false. It's more the wheel-to-wheel stuff later on that they filmed later. Anyway, let's just wind back. So, some history here about the Le Mans 24 hours over the years. There's a shot there of the Sebring car, the 908, that Steve was very successful with Peter Revson. What a great name that is, Peter Revson, for a racing driver. That's a bit better than Jensen Button, isn't it, actually? And there's a lot of photos, quite iconic photos from that event. There's Steve, not angled too well that, but there's Steve behind the wheel of the 908 at Sebring, ready to go. And we've got so much data here talking about events the previous years where the Ford GT40s had some incidents, the dangers of Le Mans over the years. This is a very, very thorough account, and it's all about McQueen's career. They've got him here in the War Lover, where he's flying his B-17 bomber. Another one of his films he was successful. Iconic shot of him in The Great Escape. And then we've got shots of him, because he loved motorbikes. He was a big friend of Bud Eakins. He was the stunt driver and motorcyclist that was in The Great Escape and lots of other things. He was one of his mates. And they used to ride dirt bikes together at the weekend. Anyway, Grand Prix. There's James Garner after being fished out of the harbour. It's quite a good sequence, that, based of course on who was the driver that went to the harbour? There's two, wasn't there, over the years? I'm trying to remember. It was Formula 1 driver. Fangio. I think Fangio went to the harbour. I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sand Pebbles, various films that Steve's made. Anyway, it goes on, and then it gets into the Le Mans, the filming of Le Mans, and it talks about Solar Village and how they. There's, by the way, there is the real end of the race. There's Hans Hermann and Dickie Atwood. And their victory laurel wreaths. And then you've got all the making of the film, how they set it up, how the photography was done, all the people that came, guests, test weekend, how they set up the camera car. Here's the camera car. See that? You can see that it's got the front mounted camera. Yeah. Now the only thing about this book that's a bit disappointing is that, and it is the only thing, it's a brilliant piece of literature. This. It's just that it's all in black and white, and that's a slight shame. Yeah. There's the Porsche Ola, Steve McQueen's car having its big crash, number 20, when he scraps it against the barrier. And there it is. There's the photo I talked about where the engine kept running and it blew its back tyres. But it was perfect. They got it in one shot, ended up nosed into the barrier, perfectly safe. Couldn't have been a better take when they made that. They were delighted. A lot of the other crashes, like the Ferrari one where he skips over the Indianapolis corner through the barrier, the Martini sign, they had to have lots of takes to get that right. And there were other problems where Derek Bell had a fire in his real Ferrari he was driving at one point, and that burst into flames and got toasted. No wonder they were using Lolas, is it? Because it's a lot cheaper. Anyway, we won't dwell any more on that particular book, but yeah, it's got some nice colour shots on the back, but it's all black and white. So don't let that put you off, though. I think it's such a brilliant reference, and it goes into such detail. You'll be reading that for years. It's quite a book. Anyway, another one that's very interesting. This is more about McQueen himself, and this is basically, should have really been called a year in the life of Steve McQueen, but it's called Steve McQueen. William Claxton was a photographer, famous photographer, who McQueen agreed to have him sort of spend time with him for over a year and actually follow him around and take some off-the-cuff, quite intimate pictures with his family and all sorts, really. Very interesting there, some great images. So let's have a look at this. I'll just take the cover off because it's a little bit loose and a bit silly. Let's just remove that for a second. I'll just flick through sort of generally, make sure I try and get you in a bit. I'll zoom you in. Let's try that. There we go. Yeah, there's all sorts of shots here. McQueen with his family on holiday, larking around in his hotel suite, pretending to be driving his car, race car. And then he had an amazing collection of vehicles, McQueen. He had so many different cars, not all at the same time. He had a Mini, he had a Ferrari 250 Lusso, he had a Jaguar XK SS. What else did he have? There he is, in the SS I just mentioned. Quite a famous picture, wearing the sunglasses that I mentioned and showed you earlier. The Purcell, so there you go, you do know that he wasn't just marketing, he was actually using the product. Driving his Jag. He actually sold that Jaguar and he actually bought it back later on in life. And here we got it. And then young Chad, his son, underneath, wearing some suspiciously cool sunglasses. Amazing stuff. Some very unique shots. You don't really see them anywhere else. I think this is his home in Beverly Hills. Look at that. Beautiful place. That's fantastic. Driving his Jag into the front of his drive. Look, incredible. And various shots of his motorbike events that he loved so much at the weekends. Some truly excellent photographs. He was clearly a really talented photographer, Claxton. This is in a store here. A men's store, Fifth Avenue, trying on shirts. Seems to take his shirt off a lot, certainly in this book anyway. I'm not sure that's... Oh, here we go. Love with a Proper Stranger. Natalie Wood. It's with Natalie Wood. Love with a Proper Stranger. Not one I've seen, if I'm honest. Some remarkable shots. I mean, it's just astonishing photos with his wife Neil. Neil Adams. Yeah, there's his Ferrari Lusso I mentioned. Yeah. And same with Jackie Gleason. He's glad, wasn't he? And this is when he was doing this, getting into this Thomas Crown sort of... it's not from the film, it's just him getting into that sort of mode of thinking. Sophisticated business guy, you know. Anyway, it's a great book. If you love Steve McQueen, it tells you a lot about his background and gives you a feel for what he was like with his family. There's also a photo in there which I meant to show you, which is quite an unusual one, which I don't think I've ever seen before. I'm going to find it. I won't be beaten. Where is it? It's a picture of him at home. Most unusual. There's a lot of pictures of him playing with his guitar. There it is, there we go, this is the one I'm looking for. Okay, we found it. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, it's just saying here, such a tough guy image, Steve McQueen, and this is him with his pussycat called Kitty Cat. So he was a bit of a softie with the animals, he really liked it. Apparently he used to dote on this cat. Not the tigery one though. and that's him with his daughter Terry. Now, I mentioned Terry, a bit sad really, because she died, didn't she? I think in 2011. She had problems with her breathing and respiratory failure, and she died. And I think that would have made him very sad. So good thing that he wasn't around anymore, really. But very sad story that. Anyway, let's move on. This is really good. Now, this is something. There was an article in the Car magazine in 2011, and it was all about this book really. And it was they went over to Mulholland Drive in LA, which is where McQueen had his house, and they marked something down. They actually found one of his old houses and some of the old photos of him with his Jag driving up and down like a maniac. He used to terrorise the neighbourhood. He was always getting pinched by the police for speeding. And this is one of the reasons he sold the Jag, and then he bought it back later in life. But this is all of his machines. So he had a Lotus, he had a Mini, and that's him, by the way, with Ken Miles. Ken Miles is the guy we just mentioned earlier, who's in the Le Mans '66 Ford versus Ferrari movie, which is played by Christian Bale, of course, in the film. And here he is with McQueen giving him a kiss, it looks like. I don't think Ken's that impressed. He's saying, go and kiss your wife, I think he's saying, over there. Anyway, let's see it back a little bit more. But yeah, so machine wise, this goes into all the, shows the rigs of how they rigged up the camera systems for the Le Mans movie. You see they built these rigs on the back of the Porsche 917. See that? To take the camera gimbal. You can also see here on the Mulsanne straight itself the rigging, forward-facing camera rigged up on one of the 917s. And this is where they're using a lot of real cars. They've got a GT40 camera car here as well. Absolutely incredible. And this is where they sort of develop this new technology. It even gives a plug for the film, the book you've just been looking at with me, the French Kiss with Death book. And then it's talking about the 911 that Steve drove at the beginning of the movie. Now, interesting story about that 911. I'm just going to zoom you out for one sec. Let's just bring you out. So, this 911 that he drives at the start of the film through the villages and zooming around early in the morning. This car was restored, I think, in California. And it was certainly sold by RM Sotheby's in California in 2015, I think I'm right in saying, and it sold for $1.35 million US, including auction fees. Oh, I mean, this was a car that was only, I don't know, about $2,000 to buy when it was brand new, and it sold for $1.35 million because of the provenance of Steve McQueen having owned it. Now, he owned one himself, but it's not the same one that's in the film, okay? And during the filming of the Le Mans movie, they were all running around in 911s that were supplied by Porsche as a kind of sponsor for the film, because there's a story here too. Porsche heavily supported the film for obvious reasons as a marketing tool. But Ferrari were also approached to support the film, and Ferrari said, and he was Enzo Ferrari himself, he says, will we have the victory at the end of the race? And they said, no, the Porsche is going to win. And he said, we have nothing to do with this, you have none of our vehicles. So the Ferraris that were used, like the one that Derek Bell was driving, were actually loaned by another company who owned them, a racing company team, I think it was. And they got no official factory support whatsoever, unfortunately, but there we go. But yeah, so here we go, we got the, bring it back in. We got the 911. The one that was used, and this is the one that was used in the film is the one, I should say, that was the 1.35 million, not the one he owned, not to be confused, the two cars. But here's a gang of Porsches that are being used for the movie, there, here. And here too, in the garage down the road from Le Mans. And there's a shot here of Chad McQueen. I'll bring it a bit closer. Shot of Chad McQueen with the dogs, and that's at the Solar Village I mentioned, that's within the confines of the circuit. there's quite a lot of huge amount of support was needed to make this film. You've got so many cars, so many cameras, all the production crew. There's a lighter moment with Neil, Steve's wife, lying on top of him. Get that in closer. There you go. There's a shot from the movie with Roland Lee Hunt, who's playing David, the team manager. And then we've got other vehicles that McQueen owned. Obviously this is the Bullet car, the Mustang. Bud Eakins was driving that, apparently, doing a lot of the stunt work. Steve did some of it, but Eakins... Yeah, now this is the Porsche 911 that Steve actually owned. Now this is now owned by his son Chad. And he drives it all over the place, apparently. He loves it, you know, it's part of his heritage, really. And there it is, really nice one. Very, very nice. And then there's this absolutely incredible Ferrari 250 Lusso. What's the GTS? Oh, sorry, this is the 275. I only had two. Okay, so it's a 275 GTS Spider. A real beauty. That is. What a stunning looking machine. Absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, we've got various. And this is his jacket. This is very much. He's one of his favourites. And this is the car he bought, sold, and then bought it back again later. The Jaguar XK SS. And he used to race up and down Mulholland Drive, causing absolute mayhem, especially on a Saturday night, and doing drag races against young kids in their Chevys with predictable results. Victory. And he had a Porsche Speedster as well, another car that he had. 74, that was later. Beautiful car. Absolutely gorgeous. Just so pretty. Look at that. What a beautiful machine. Stunning. Anyway, looking forward. So this covers everything. He also has his motorbikes in there that he had. And we just get to... some of the race cars, the 908. It's all there. A very, very interesting book. I can recommend that one to you. Matt Stone. Quite a hard book to get hold of. We had to get this from the USA. Couldn't get it in the UK or Europe at all. Now then. Now I'm going to go to what is probably the definitive Steve McQueen Le Mans book. Steve McQueen, Le Mans in the Rear View Mirror. Now this book is fairly recent, I think. It came out about 3-4 years ago. And these two guys actually were involved in the production of the film. Plenty of experience, and there are just zillions of photographs. And in this one, they're in colour. So let's have a look. Again, I'm going to remove the cover just for convenience's sake to show you. Le Mans in the rearview mirror. A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting. Famous quote from the film. Another famous quote from McQueen that I'll just mention to you is that he famously said, and it's in one of these books, I think it's this one, he famously said, being an actor is a gas. It's great fun. Being a movie star is a pain in the ass. He said because you get nagged, people want your autograph, you never get any peace, you know, you're hounded by the press, etc., etc. He said, I enjoyed acting right up to the point that I got real fame. He said, and with the money comes lots of problems, so not that simple, is it? Anyway, let's have a look at this. So this is a later part of the production, obviously, because it's got Lee Katzin's name there. There you go. And we've just got, I mean, this is just the definitive story of the production, what led up to it, one or two shot of him looking at I think it's a Cooper Climax Formula 1 car. And then we just get, oh, and there he is with the sunglasses again, look, the Persol sunglasses. And then it goes into all the detail. Now we've got some of the other drivers. There we have none other than Derek Bell on the left. Derek Bell, in this problem he had with his Ferrari that burst into flames, he was badly burned on his face. His nose and sort of around here on the left side of his face. He was very lucky, and it was only instant fire, you know, he jumped out, he didn't have any problems getting out of the car, but he was burned anyway. It just shows you how dangerous they were. Anyway. Oh yes. Louise Edlund, this very beautiful actress who played Johann Ritter's wife, Anna Ritter, in the movie. I won't say too much. I suggest you watch the Steve McQueen The Man in Le Mans movie, but he does talk here about Steve quite liked this lady, and there was a bit of an incident where they had an evening out together, and then there was a car crash. And anyway, this accident occurred. I won't go into the details. Don't want anybody to sue me. But watch the movie. It tells you all about it. In the documentary, I should say. And then I'm going to zoom you out so you can get a bit more of this. There we go. Look at this. This is the Ferrari when it had its crash in the movie, of course. I think it was the leading Ferrari at the time. And then this is the images from what I've just been talking about, the Derek Bell Ferrari that burst into flames. You can see how nasty that looks. Very, very bad. And I'm sure there's a picture somewhere of Bell's face. I'm not sure if I can just find it at this moment, but Steve sitting on the side part of the Ferrari. And there's our hero who won the real event. Look, it's Mr. Dickie Atwood. In fact, he's got his laurel wreath in his hand. If you look there, see it. So many photos. Just a great book. This is. I mean, this probably is the one I'd recommend the most. If you want to know about the making of this film. And so many good photos. There's the unveiling of the flag. Look, 13th and 14th of June 1970 on the flag to start the race. And some remark. Oh, there is the flag. Look, there we go. That's like the image you see in the film, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic. Scenes of the paddock. All the behind the scenes shots. Real life, how they rigged up these cars with these camera systems. 2 cameras at the back, just above the exhaust, and one at the front. And this is a photo. There we've got David Piper that lost his leg. This is beforehand, and this is the photo of the accident. And he did say that the only thing that was holding the front and the part that he was in and the engine together was his foot. And that had to come off, sadly. He lost it. But look at the state of it, and he's lucky he's alive, you know. What a huge accident. Just nothing left of the car apart from the engine. With the seat attached, that's all you can really see. He had to put it in the back of a lorry, and that was the end of his car, and he owned that car. And there he is talking to Derek Bell, Steve McQueen. Derek Bell on the left, Steve McQueen on the right. And here we've got the number 23 car, which is the car of Dickie Atwood and Hans Herman, who won the race, of course. And it's just page after page of wonderful photographs. Just brilliant, brilliant record of so much of the event. You can see there Steve with his own camera, having lunch with the family. There's Bob Relier, the Solar director that Steve fell out with. And it just goes on and on. It's just an absolute picture sort of record of everything that happened. Here's Lee Katzin, who had the unenviable task of taking over the film that was in such a disarray, and you've got to say he did a good job in the end. Surprising, isn't it? That's a great book, and I'm going to show you a couple of photographs that are pertinent to what we're just chatting about there. We have a photo here of John Sturgis and Steve. This is before it all breaks down. John Sturgis talking with Steve next to the 917, both sitting on the ground. And Sturgis, when he had this falling out, deciding he didn't want to continue. He just couldn't do it anymore, and they never worked together again. But apparently, he actually said, I told Bob Rose, and he said, I am too old and too rich to put up with this kind of shit anymore. And that was it. He said he was going home, and he got on the plane and went home, and that was it. He walked off the production. So he's not credited as the director, but he did do more than 50% of it, probably, in real terms. But Steve was kind of almost directing, and whenever they tried to introduce this sort of proper theatrical story, he didn't want that. And you can understand it in a way, because it was his baby, and I have to say that if they'd have made that a theatrical film, I think it would have been quite forgettable. And it is unique because it feels so real, it feels so real. Even the fact that he doesn't win the race, and the driver called Larry Wilson actually wins the race. And you have to excuse me, I can't remember the name of the actor, but I do know that he was best known in the UK for appearing on Crossroads, the one that won Le Mans. Yeah. Anyway, true, strange but true. Yeah, there's a few sort of little gifs and things here that are quite funny. This is obviously the shot from Bullet of Steve reversing the Mustang to charge off up the hill. There he goes. Not doing the tyres any good, I guess. Then we got one or two others from Bullet. This is the car chase, which ends, as you know, very dramatically indeed. Into the petrol station, setting it completely alight. This is just before, of course, when they're on the streets of San Francisco. And then we got a couple of ones from Le Mans. And then we got Steve with the Great Escape, of course, with his famous scene with his bike. Making the first jump successfully. And he gets caught, doesn't he, in the middle one. And in the Cooler King. And Thomas Crown with his glasses. Look, there's the glasses again. Giving that little grin. And there's the famous "racing is life" quote. Anyway, it all happened 50 years ago this weekend, all this stuff, and we'll put that one back, and I've got one more thing, or two more things to show you, which are pretty unique in my experience. Something very special. And it is a couple of books that I acquired recently, and they are basically animated book. So we've got two of them, and basically it's part one and part two. So it's a recreation in animation of the Le Mans movie. And I've got to say, I'm going to zoom in for this, because I've got to say these are absolutely astonishing. Now then, I'll have to lift it up a little bit, I think. So this guy Sandro Garbo is an artist and always wanted to do this. Apparently, he must have got permission from McQueen's family, from Chad, to do this. And it's so true. It's not word for word to the actual film, but very, very close. And it sort of fills in little bits that perhaps they were actually in the script, because he got the original script to actually help him to make the stories. And I think it's perhaps the bits that were cut out. It makes you realise that certain bits were cut out of the film. There's the story of the crash the previous year, which is alluded to at the start of the film. Michael Delaney, played by McQueen of course, has this accident with Piero Belghetti. And then there's the siren going off and his wife. And then it sort of cuts to executive jet, the Porsche executive jet, yeah, flying into France. Paris. But look at the quality of these illustrations, it's absolutely mind-blowing. Just superb. Picking up his company car. And then we have the start of the movie. And this time he meets a policeman who asks him what he's doing. He's about to close the road. And then we get into the whole visual start of the movie and all the preparation. But it has this background stuff, you know. Larry Wilson, rookie driver, who of course ends up winning the race, the guy in green. I won't show you every page, but I'm going to flick through. But the artwork is just breathtakingly good. It's just worth every penny. And these are about, I think, about £40 each, these books in the UK. But look at this. It's astonishing. This is high art. I'm so pleased that they did this. I think it's beautiful. Beautiful thing. So it shows all the cars that are competing in the different classes. And it has this sort of young Larry Wilson, Porsche number 22. There he is. He's the guy with his hand up. He's the one that wins the race in the movie. There's car 23 is shown. Look, Richard Atwood's car, which really won the race. And then it goes on, and every page is an absolute joy. And here we go. The race is on. Fantastic. It's just mouth-watering. It's almost like watching the movie again. It's just incredible. So it goes on. Number 25, long-tail Porsche. Breaking it, coming out of Mulsanne. Even those iconic shots of it coming over the hill, look. Breaking into the Mulsanne corner. Absolutely, it's just glorious. It's just glorious. Anyway, I bought this and I'm working my way through it, enjoying every page. And you get through, and it's even the scene, you know, with Ritter and his wife, and conversations that they have. The rain, the lightning, bad weather. Look at this. I mean, it's just mouthwater, isn't it? It's art like you've not seen for a long time, if ever, really. Look at that. Amazing. And it goes into the scene where Delaney's in the cafe having his rest period, where the driver takes over. Here's Richard Atwood again appearing, who's going to win the race in reality, of course. Ferrari. Disaster for the number 2 Ferrari. Disaster. That iconic scene of him running away is in slow-mo in the film, of course, isn't it? Well, they do it sort of a multi-sequence. And then disastrous explosion, which Delaney sees out the corner of his eye, of course. Himself becoming distracted, comes at the back of a slower car, loses control and has a big accident. Fantastic artwork here. Call for the air ambulance immediately. And that's it, that's how it ends. Well, I wasn't very happy with that. Luckily though, about 18 months later, we get the final instalment, and Steve McQueen created Le Mans. So, here we get to continue the story. Now this is a bit strange, the second part, because it suddenly jumps into the behind the scenes of how they were actually making the film in cartoon form. That's quite a bit strange. There you go, McQueen behind the camera, look. And then we suddenly go back to the movie. And I'm guessing that this is kind of how it was split, you know, because it says Lee Katzin, doesn't it, on there, on the clapperboard. So I'm guessing that this is basically how the movie was split before and after the accident, in terms of 2 different directors. It's impressive stuff, you know. It continues to tell the story. The journalist asking David Townsend if the car's finished, and then Steve McQueen comes back to the pits, having been okayed by the medical checkup. And his famous quote, "Racing is life." Number 21 Porsche. More fantastic illustrations of all the Porsches, and another incident bringing number 21 in because it has a little bit, something it doesn't show in the movie. He has an incident, spins off, looks like it's Indianapolis again, and they say bring him in because the suspension might be damaged. That is the reason that they changed the rear suspension. That's the reason they changed the rear suspension, because they show it as they found it damaged at the pit stop. That's when he decides to go and see Michael Delaney and to make him substitute for Johann Ritter for the final part of the race. By the way, in the background here we've got the got the crash, the big crash, just playing out there that we just spoken about. Slow-mo effect of him running away and then the enormous explosion. Not good. Not good at all. Anyway, back to this. Here we go. This is obviously where the Ferrari has problems with this. Starts to send him on his way and he realises there's a problem with the battery. Electrics have gone. David Townsend comes to see Delaney in his motorhome, asks him if he's fit, sends him on his way. And a bit of Steve McQueen there behind the camera as well. Little interjection. And then the rest you kind of know. He gets back in the 21 car, takes over from Ritter. Now Ritter seems a lot more cheerful about it in the cartoon version they did in the film. He looked right fed up. It being dropped without any sort of warning. And then we have this chase is on to catch the Ferrari, which is so well portrayed in the film, of course. And again, looking in the mirror, seeing him coming in the distance. He's coming for you, boy. And then catching him. And then these final laps in the end, where they come up against another car. Great illustrations, beautiful stuff. A bit more to it here. It's got a bit more detail. And then, of course, the leading Porsche, Ferrari, I should say, has this horrible tyre puncture, which they very dramatically display here as a flicks him in the air job. Car number 22 takes the lead. There. Suddenly, disaster for Ferrari, glory for Porsche. Final race to the line. Young Larry Wilson just got to get it to across the line, but he's got 21 Delaney and Ritter bearing down on him. Eric Starler, sorry, not Ritter. Eric Starler. Ritter was his teammate who got dropped. Eric Starler in the Ferrari. Ain't gonna get it right. There you go. Look at this. And then, of course, they have this ding-dong battle on the last lap, which you've all seen in the film. He manages to just edge it. Porsche wins Le Mans, first and second. Disaster for Ferrari. Disaster. And then finally on the last page, yeah, Delaney gives Starler the V sign, the famous the famous act of defiance. And that's it. But what a beautiful... Well, he actually has a final word with the lady, Mrs. Belghetti. Belghetti's widow, and it ends like that, with him saying he's going to come along to see how Claude is, the Ferrari driver. And then Garbo gives a little speech at the end, just saying how pleased he was he would be able to do this. And he got an original copy of the script from Siegfried Rauch, who played Eric Starler in the movie, of course. Sadly, Siegfried Rauch died about 2.5-3 years ago. He had a fall since he made the film, the documentary film, in which he features quite a bit. Very, very watchable. But he had a little bit of a fall apparently, and he died. So he's no longer with us, sadly. But I mean, this is high art. I know it's like a cartoon, but it's the quality of the imaging. I mean, look at it. It's got a beautiful matte lamination finish, and then this spot UV varnish on them, on the characters and the cars there. It's beautifully done, isn't it? Very pleased to have those in my collection, I've got to say. So that's it really. The only other thing to show you, finally, before I close, I know it's been a long vid, but I hope you've enjoyed it. It's probably motivate you to buy one or two of these books or DVDs or things. I am, of course, I've got another book here, all about McQueen. All about McQueen. The whole of his life, a big book. Okay, his whole life story there. Very interesting character. Kind of a troubled guy, Steve McQueen, but the king of cool. Nobody was ever cooler, not even Clint Eastwood, I think. And he was pretty cool. Final thing we have, yeah, we've still got the movie playing away in the background, but of course I am building the Steve McQueen Porsche 917. I'd hope to actually have this finished for this weekend's anniversary, which is this afternoon, the 50th anniversary of the Le Mans 1970. Things don't work out like that, sadly, and it's taken a little bit longer than I thought. But I'll show you what I've done so far. This is not painted, so ignore the colour. The colour's not right, yeah? That's not been painted yet, that's just the way it comes. But we have got some work has taken place. We've got the... I'll bring you in for this, I think. We've got the... there we go. We've got the chassis, we've got the brakes. This is the front brakes, seat, fire extinguishers, and... yeah, the brake discs are nice. These are PE brake discs. It's coming along, just taking a little bit longer than we perhaps expected. It's my fault really, I think I started it a bit too late. I'm normally very good at doing these things for a deadline, you know, when there's an anniversary or Christmas or something. But I got caught out this time. We had some good weather and distracts you, doesn't it? It's nice to sit in the garden or whatever. But anyway, so that's where we're at. So more work to come on that, to build that. So you'll see a separate video when it's done, just showing it off. I don't think I'll be talking about it. It'll just be a video with some music and perhaps some slideshow of some of the images of the build. Hope that's of interest to you. That's kind of it really. I hope you found it interesting. Obviously the Le Mans movie is such a legendary and iconic piece of art, you know. Especially like these sequences where they're sort of screeching down the Mulsanne Straight and roaring at it, you know. Here we go. You've got to love that, really, you know. And it's done for real. They did it for real. Okay, they may have done some of those sequences later, but it just adds to the pleasure of the movie to know that this wasn't false, it wasn't CGI, it wasn't done in the studio. Yeah. Steve McQueen actually drove this car and he drove it flat out. You know, he was doing well over 200 on the straight as well. And it was risky stuff. And that is what makes it such a great movie. Anyway, today is the anniversary, today and tomorrow. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope I wasn't too long and boring, but there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of memorabilia and some great books that I would recommend every one of them. If I'm honest, I think the Le Mans in the Rearview Mirror is my favourite, along with these. Obviously these are a different type of art, but those really, you just, especially if you've got any youngsters, I think they really enjoy looking at those. But it's just candy for your eyes, those sort of things. And it makes us remember, you know, that sometimes if you want to create high art, whether it's a book or a movie, it's not easy. It's not easy. I think it's very easy to see the way that films are made today. A lot of it's done in the studio, a lot of it's done on the PC by a couple of guys, you know. But you can tell they don't look real. They don't look real. That's the reason that films like the Bond films try not to use CGI now wherever they can. They try and do physical stunts because they just look so much more realistic. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy the Le Mans anniversary, and if you get a chance to pick up those videos, or if it's on TV, you should definitely watch it. But please look at the links below this video. I'm going to give you a link to the movie. You can watch it straight away if you want. You can't watch the Steve McQueen The Man and Le Mans film because that's not available on YouTube, but you should really get a copy of that, or the Le Mans 66 Ford versus Ferrari film, which is also brilliant, great entertainment and true story. So enjoy those things. A few links for you to look at underneath. Hope you enjoy those as well. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, take care. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.